Welcome to another episode of In the Line of Wire with me, Jahara. I have with me today a young man who's flown here from the UK. Well, no, he didn't specially fly to be on In the Line of Wire, but we grabbed him anyway. KubairShirazeeIkonami, who is CEO of ITLOW. Hi, Kubair.
Good morning, John. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Now, tell our viewers a little bit about your background and then a little more about what the company does.
My background is...
only the uncensored parts.
Only the uncensored parts, fair enough. My background is, Pakistan's my adopted country. I've lived here for 9 years. I was born in the UK, finished sort of high schoolish here, went back to the UK for further studies, stayed there. And after graduation, after my master's, started my own company.
Okay.
It took me about 6 months to realize that I'm unemployable.
Okay.
Can't be managed.
Okay. Like me.
Yes, I have to manage myself.
Okay.
So I started off Ikonami, which was in those days called Kitania. Kitania was a Central Asian name.
Okay.
And it means civilizers from outer space. So we were out to civilize the world.
Okay.
But then people started asking us whether we were backed by Russian money. So we had to very quickly come out of that one.
Okay.
And we decided to call the company Ikonami.
And what does that mean?
It's something we made up.
Okay.
It comes from the word origami.
Okay.
So origami is the art of turning plain paper into beautiful, ornate things.
Right.
Ikonami is the art of taking business processes and hiding all the complexity behind an icon.
Oh, so there's a lot of thought that went into the name.
Oh, of course.
Okay, great. No, well, it's not of course, because lots of people name companies without any thought going into it.
Well, we had to put a lot of thought into this one.
Okay, all right.
Then Ikonami started life as a project management company.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'm enjoying the lovely coffee.
Yeah, it's great.
So we started project managing offshore work. So
Okay.
there's always been a growing demand for outsourcing and offshoring.
Mm-hmm.
But back in the days, this is 1999, 2000,
Right.
there weren't many companies who specialized in managing offshore contractors
Right.
or offshore companies.
Right.
So we were the bridge between UK clients and offshore service providers. Yeah. Locations varying from India, Israel, South Africa, Pakistan, you name it, we worked with them.
Okay.
After about 2.5, 3 years of doing so, we decided to launch our own products
Okay.
because we developed so much expertise, having consulted so many different clients, and we found that we'd ended up kind of repeating ourselves each
Right,
time.
right.
So we codified our knowledge into that, into several products over time. Our primary clients were in healthcare, are in healthcare, so we specialize in healthcare.
Right.
Somehow or the other, we got attracted towards human capital management, or what is also known as talent management.
Right.
Back in the days, talent management was an HRMS, which is a human resource management system, and HR was kind of like a black art where you hire fire and it's bums on seats.
Right.
So
It's a very misunderstood profession.
it is a very, very misunderstood profession.
I hung out with about 10 HR managers last night, so.
I can
Hearing
relate to their
pains,
pains. Yes,
yeah.
I can relate to their pains. So we started getting into products at a good time when the talent management industry or the human capital management industry was evolving, and HR was getting more and more of a strategic role in the
Right,
board.
right.
You know, HR wasn't that guy or that lady who just sits there and tells you that I need more money to hire more people.
Right.
So we codified our knowledge into a learning management system, into a performance management system, and we kept evolving those.
Okay.
I think one of our strengths was that we weren't HR people.
Okay.
So we weren't wearing those traditional HR blinkers. We
Right.
were technology people. For instance, my business partner, his background is more towards strategy.
Okay.
Mine is more technical specification. I used to be a really bad coder.
Okay.
So I moved away from that really, really soon.
And let others do it.
Let others do it.
Right.
And we ended up with a business model where we commercialize intellectual property. So we'd go in, we'd find out what your requirements are, needs are, we'd develop something for you, we'd come back, we'd think about it a bit more, codify that into a product, and put it out in the marketplace.
Right.
So in many ways, you could say we take benefit from producing disruptive products.
Okay.
So we, for instance, all our products complement existing third-party products.
Okay.
So our systems would sit on top of Oracle, on top of SAP, or any payroll or any HRMS system.
But that's brilliant. Because
it is, because you can't replace them.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't want to you shouldn't want to replace them either.
Just add value.
Exactly. That makes ROI easier. You know, not only for our own products, but for the underlying primary capital asset that you might have.
So then do you market them with the likes of Oracle and Microsoft, or do you market them on your own? Because that's something that a lot of our companies have problems with.
Unfortunately, if you do build something that complements a third-party product like SAP or Oracle, you probably find that you compete with them as well.
Oh.
Because they will have modules.
Yes.
You know, they do everything under the sun.
Right.
And they do some things, most things, really, really well, but other things not so well.
Right.
So you should try and focus on that thing that they don't do so well.
Right.
So I've been called, or rather, Ikonami's products have been called wall fillers.
Okay.
So you've got a big wall, which is, say, Oracle or SAP, and you've got a crack in it.
Right.
So what do you fill it up with?
Right.
And you fill it up with products that complement it. So that's basically what we do and who we are.
Okay.
Our primary market is in the United Kingdom, though we're starting to scratch the surface of the Pakistani
The local market.
the local market as well.
Okay, that's good.
But that's a challenge because we've got to educate HR people, or rather educate the board of directors that, look, HR isn't this guy who sits in that corner and no one looks at unless and until you want to fire someone or hire someone.
Right.
And HR is
or train.
central
Come on,
to
a little more.
Okay, a little more, and train as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Let's not forget absenteeism and sickness and things like that. You always look at the HR person for that.
Right.
But the point is, HR is strategic. Without your soft assets, your hard assets are completely useless.
Correct.
Like we were talking about it earlier. Ideally, you'd like to go into a factory, press a button, and money would come out the other end. It doesn't work like that unless you're a mint. In that case, you can't really use that money yourself.
Right.
But the point is, without a competent workforce, you can't run any business.
Correct.
So unless and until you can quantify the competence of your workforce, you can't really decide how strongly you're going to go after a market. So anyway, our business model is that we've got a offshore software development center in Islamabad, and we've got a support center, and we've got a consultation team in the United Kingdom, based out in London. And that model's worked out for us pretty good so far.
Okay. And how many people work for you in the Islamabad?
In Islamabad, we've got a total team size of 81, mashallah.
Okay.
Of which we've got 52 developers, and the rest are QA, technical documentation, support, admin, etc. And in the UK, we've got 7 consultants and 5 support agents.
And do you foresee this growing to any extent?
I do. I think the mix will probably vary. Like, for instance, right now we're seeing more growth in the UK than we are in Islamabad. But I think that's cyclical. Sometimes, UK is going to grow faster than Islamabad is. It really depends on your product life cycle. So for instance, whenever we're launching products, like for instance, we're quite top heavy in Islamabad right now because we're launching 3 new products this year, inshallah.
Okay.
On the other hand, once those products are launched, then we'll probably grow the UK team further in terms of its consultants, support agents, and sales agents to take those products to market. And then when we come up with another brilliant idea, which may or may not work, we'll come back to the old one where we'll go top heavy in Islamabad again, get more products out, and then sell them in the UK.
Okay, now are you looking at other markets as well?
We are. In some respects, we've almost held ourselves back.
Okay.
Because our business model is true SaaS, so software as a service.
Right.
And when you have software as a service, you don't really need to be saying my market is the United Kingdom.
Correct.
Your market is the World Wide Web. Mm-hmm. So we're heading in that direction now. It's just like, we had a light bulb moment. It's like, hey, hang on, we could actually sell this to the world. Why haven't we been selling this to the world?
Right.
So now we're heading in that direction. We're launching 2 SaaS products this fall, inshallah.
Mm-hmm. And how will you need a marketing team out there to sell?
Yes,
right?
we've got a marketing team out in England, and we've got a marketing team in Islamabad. So all the SEO kind of stuff, that happens over here, and our guy's really, really good. We stole him from a really good company. And our English team is quite good as well in that market. And for specific things, we outsource.
Okay.
So for like PR and publications, etc., we'll outsource it to a specialist.
Because you need specialists for those areas. Now tell me, the company is doing well and it's growing and
Mashallah.
the business is growing. What is missing in terms of legislation in Pakistan, in terms of support perhaps from the government, in terms of collaboration within the industry itself? You know, I know you have very strong ideas in this
You want me
area.
to get started on
Yes,
that?
of
Brilliant.
course,
Excellent.
of course. That's the whole idea.
Okay. Firstly, one of the things that really strikes me in Pakistan is lack of support for enterprise.
Okay.
Now, any economy is predominantly based on small to medium-sized companies.
Right.
In Pakistan, we've got a culture where small to medium-sized or small companies, you know, you could say like embryonic companies, they never really take shape.
Right.
Because the guy with the idea can't find any finance. And I'm not talking about going to a VC because, you know,
No, at that
a
stage,
man
you-
with an idea can't, or a person with an idea can't just go to a VC and say, excuse me, I've got a really good idea and I'd like $1 million to try it out.
Right.
You know, I wish we all lived in a world where that was possible, and not all of us, like, you know, have rich uncles and dads to finance us.
Right.
So what that leaves us with is bank financing.
Yes.
And that's something that Pakistan needs to look into really, really strongly. For instance, if you start a business over here, you need to have a minimum deposit amount. Now,
Okay.
when you're starting a business, whatever money you have, you're going to put into your idea.
Of course.
Fair enough, you'll put it into the bank and then you'll pay people out.
Right.
But the point is, the moment you run out of that money, that's it, kaput, you're finished.
Yes.
So the bank will not give you a lifeline.
Unless you have a mill, textile mill.
Exactly, unless
or
you
a
have
huge
got,
house.
if you've got collateral.
Yeah.
So if you've got collateral, like for instance, if you go to a bank in Pakistan and say, excuse me, but I'd like a $1 million overdraft. Now, $1 million for all of those out there isn't a lot of money.
No.
So what the bank will say is, fine, I'll give you a $1 million overdraft, but you give me a $1 million bond, which is like, hang on. If I had $1 million to buy a bond and give it to you, why would I need an overdraft for $1 million?
Exactly.
Or you give me a property, and you go, hang on, if I had a property, I'd mortgage it and put it into my idea.
Right.
So for an entrepreneur who's starting out from scratch, there is no government support. I mean, the State Bank, I believe they're called prudential rules.
Yeah.
They completely go against, you know, free market and enterprise.
Okay.
Because no small business means no medium business, which means, you know, you got a dead economy. So you're relying on MNCs and people with a lot of money, and that obviously leads to ill distribution of wealth.
Right.
So you've got to say, for example, you've got a kid somewhere down the road who's got a really good idea. He's got no money to finance it. So what happens over here now is that idea either gets stolen by his employers, you know, who once again make lots of money out of it if they have the money to finance it, or the idea dies with the kid.
Okay.
Or the idea goes on the internet and he tries to do something with it, and hopefully it'll become open source. But there's a strong need for not just the IT industry, but all sectors in general to lobby the government to either relax or remove these really ridiculous State Bank of Pakistan prudential rules.
But why did they come into place? Because they weren't there originally, right?
They weren't there, and they did come into place because people before us, or I won't call them entrepreneurs before us, I'd call them con men before us, they fleeced the banks.
Okay.
But I don't think you should punish future generations for the sins of, you know, I won't say our forefathers, but those who were before us.
Right.
So we need to look at each generation in, you know, through different lenses. This
Right.
is not the same generation. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about, like, you know, entrepreneurs in this country. This is not the same generation that was here 20 years ago.
Right.
Like, for instance, I was having this conversation with someone from State Bank, and they said, well, you don't know how relaxed we were, and we got taken for a ride. Well, it's not our fault you got taken for a ride. It's your fault.
You should build in the safeguards.
Exactly. You need to build in
Don't go to the
controls.
other extreme.
Exactly. Don't go to the other extreme. Stay somewhere in the middle.
Right.
You know, where you've got people who come to you with sound business plans. You know, your job as a bank is to help them. So if you don't scrutinize their business plan, who will? You know, friends and families don't scrutinize business plans. You know, I could come up with the most ridiculous idea, but believe me, my mother will say, you go do it because it will succeed. And so would my wife and my sister and my brothers and my friends. They'll say, go for it. Except for the sensible ones who will probably say, you might want to have a think about it.
Okay.
So friends and families, you know, won't give you the best of advice for something that you're really passionate about.
Yeah.
They'd be like, you know,
Because they think you're brilliant and
Exactly.
you're bound to come up with a brilliant
so you
idea.
need a devil's advocate. And who better be a devil's advocate than someone who's about to give you some money?
But what about, there are countries like, say, Malaysia, where the government actually has a fund which is used to promote entrepreneurship rather than relying totally on the banks?
I think that can work as well.
Okay.
So the government definitely should do that. I'm more stressing towards the bank because I haven't really seen much support from the government, successive governments in this country, for our sector at least.
Okay.
I've been, for instance, lobbying for data protection laws and privacy laws, commercial data protection laws, for 7 years now, since 2002. And you and yourself and PSEB and Pasha did get something going about 2 odd years ago. And I did hold my breath for a little while until I turned blue.
Right.
And I was like, okay, it's time to breathe now.
Forward.
It hasn't moved forward.
It's stuck somewhere.
It's taken the first step.
Yes.
So I take comfort in the fact that it took about 5 years for it to take the first step.
No, the draft is ready. Zahid Jamil was commissioned to actually put together the draft. Zahid's been on in the line of wire as well. But it's stuck somewhere in the ministry and we sort of can't find out why.
Probably because Pakistan hasn't got an IT minister right now. That could be one of the reasons. So that also goes to show the importance this industry gets, from this government. And they're doing some great things.
Maybe they're looking for a brilliant person to come in as minister.
Maybe they should appoint you.
No, thank you. I'm fine where I am.
You're not ready to leave Pasha yet.
No.
They do need to bring in someone who understands this industry. Getting in a young guy who might have a degree in economics won't work.
Right.
Getting in a dynamic individual who may or may not even have a degree,
Right.
because we've got people in this country's parliament and ministries who may or may not have degrees. So what we need to do is get in someone who's willing to listen to the industry.
Right.
Like for instance, Pasha is a very good forum. Pasha pushes through, lobbies a lot of good things.
And there are enough people with different kinds of expertise within Pasha. I mean, the companies are headed by individuals who have learned over the years about different sectors of the industry.
Absolutely.
So there is all that knowledge for them
benefit
to tap on. Yeah.
I don't know if I can say this on tape or not, but you don't really need to go and draft a legislation. Just go out there and look at legislations that other countries have implemented and learn from them.
Yes.
I'm not saying like control,
No.
C, control
Don't copy
V.
paste,
Yeah,
but yes,
learn from
them. Yeah.
And implement them in this country, because what that will do is it'll open up the Pakistani world. For a start, it'll put Pakistan at equal footing to a handful of countries in the world.
Right.
So like for instance, right now, almost every country, east of Turkey, including Turkey, is into outsourcing.
Okay.
Eastern Europe is into outsourcing. Everyone, wherever you can find labor arbitrage. We find that clients usually hop from one location to the other. So they'll be like, hey, India's become really expensive. Let's go east, or let's go to China,
Right.
or what do you think? Should we go to South Africa?
Right.
Or what are the rates like in Pakistan? So the clients are really fickle. So what you need to do is make sure that your host economy is at an equal footing, or at least above the rest of the crowd.
Right.
So you've got a huge crowd out there. So how do you differentiate yourself from the others? Well, for instance, if you look at Argentina, they've got a data protection legislation that's been ratified by the European Union.
Wow.
So if I wanted to have cheap data processing done, where do I go? Legally, I can only go to Argentina or Europe. So if I want it done cheap, I'll go to Argentina. Likewise, no other country that I know of, other than America's got safe harbor, Canada's got safe harbor policies.
Right.
No other country that I know of, including the giants of outsourcing, India, have any decent data protection policies that are ratified by the European Union. Okay. Having said that, India does have a data protection law, which Pakistan doesn't. So in that respect, I do believe, like for instance, the Indian data protection law is quite geared towards both the markets.
Okay.
You were telling me yesterday that the Australians have got
the Australians
a similar
have come out with a good piece of legislation regarding data protection, although, the guys in the industry and in civil society still think it could be better and have commented on it. But it's a great place to start.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, laws need to evolve.
Yeah.
All laws, need to evolve over time. So if the point is, we need to start somewhere. Right. And in this country, we've got a draft legislation, as you said. We need someone to come and pick it up from the government and say to the industry, what do you want done with it?
Right. Involve the stakeholders,
involve
get
the
opinions.
stakeholders, involve someone from like, the European Commission as well.
Right.
Say, look, we're looking at putting this legislation into play. Do you mind having a look at it? Yeah, of course, they'll charge you a fee for it, but at least what you'll get at the end of it would be something that would be acceptable to a potential market for you. These are the kind of things which are like holding back Pakistan in many respects, like lack of enterprise.
Right.
Support for enterprises, holding back, people with new ideas.
Right.
And you probably come across, well, you definitely come across a lot more budding entrepreneurs in this country than I do, but I come across quite a few, and they've got good ideas. Including some of my own staff, they'll have good ideas as well. But the point is, how do they get started? It always comes and stops there, is how do I find financing as an individual without collateral?
Well, we now have a tech angel network which is beginning, so the first angel investment will start coming in. But you're right, it's not enough. There needs to be more that's done.
If you can get the banks to be more supportive, the banks will need the government to guarantee them that, look, if things do go haywire, you will understand, not bail us out, but at least understand what's going on, then we'll have a far wider reach. Like angel investors is great, but
right.
they'll be stuck in certain urban hubs and they'll be accessible to certain networks.
Right.
Whereas,
And one angel investor is just not enough. I mean,
exactly.
You need many more.
The poor guy will the poor woman will get their clothes torn off if they walked in and said, hey, I got money to give out. There'll be so many entrepreneurs out there, who will hound them. They probably will end up reading so many business plans they wouldn't know where to go with it. But those are the kind of things that we need to, the Pakistani government and the industry needs to look at, as supporting enterprise, bringing in legislations. Like they passed a legislation in this country called the E-Crimes Bill.
The crime
Yeah,
ones.
I'm not even going to go on tape on saying what I think about it, but legislations like this, you can't have a legislation that's just plucked out of the air and someone had a really good idea and you just create stuff because you've got an opportunity to. For those people who created the e-crimes legislation, well, if you spoke to the industry, we tell you what we need.
Right.
It's not the e-crimes bill. So we've got to not only
legislation is needed, but exactly
proper legislation is needed.
Yes, correct.
I mean, we can legislate till kingdom come, but there's no point if you don't talk to the industry, and more so if you don't listen to the industry. I mean, I remember Pasha throwing all the teddies out of the pram when the crimes bill was to be passed. I remember lawyers who represent or specialize in the IT trade throwing their teddies out of the pram when this bill was being passed, but no one actually paid any attention to these people. So that's another thing that's required.
A lot more conversations taking place between government and
It has to be a dialogue.
industry.
It has to be a discussion. It can't be a monologue. A lot of things in this country are a monologue. So we need to move away from that feudal mindset that it's master and serf. It isn't. Wake up. You live in a different world now.
Right. Now, but the ecosystem is evolving. You do see entrepreneurs who've been around for a while now giving back. One of the initiatives that Pasha started was the Startup Insiders session, where entrepreneurs do give their time. They're offering mentoring to one-on-one as well as collectively to young people who want to start businesses. So it's begun, but I think you're right. We need to put in a lot more effort.
It's definitely the right step. Every time I come back to Pakistan, I see the right steps being taken by the industry itself,
Right.
which is a common theme in this economy. Like if you take textiles, you take IT, you take any industry, it will always be the enterprise leading the way. And so it should be.
Yeah.
But there's never any support behind them. Yeah. So what you're looking to do is you're looking towards not just the government, but the institutions to build the bridge or build a road as you're running ahead. What we've got is, if entrepreneurs over here look back, what we've got behind us is a dirt track.
Right.
Whereas what we'd expect, is a proper road that others could follow.
Right.
So it becomes trial and error for all those who walk behind you or try and follow in your footsteps.
So perhaps institutionalizing the effort. You were talking to me yesterday about something that exists in the UK, especially to support entrepreneurs. Would you tell us a little about
I'd say what you folks are doing with your mentoring scheme is very much the same.
Okay.
Like in Britain, I'm involved with something called Mosaic and the Bright Ideas Trust.
Okay.
And Mosaic is mentoring for Muslim entrepreneurs, students, anyone who's looking for guidance.
Okay.
Bright Ideas Trust is specifically for budding entrepreneurs.
Okay.
Where
Why the
they're run by two different organizations.
I mean, just curious, do Muslim students or entrepreneurs need different guidance from?
They are a minority.
Okay.
And the Mosaic Trust Mosaic's run by Prince Charles's Trust.
Okay.
So the funding comes from Prince Charles's Trust. Okay. And it's been developed to address a specific need, okay, which, like for instance, the area I work in is a very deprived neighborhood.
Okay.
So you've got kids who are stuck in a vicious cycle, you know, of living on a housing project or a council estate, growing up there, and living on dole money and not really having any aspirations because they don't really get to go out. They're not confident enough to step out of that cocoon that's been built for them. So the idea is that someone you're familiar with, right, share the same beliefs, value systems with, will hold your hand and drag you out of there and say, look at the world outside and see if this is a better place.
Well, it's something that could work now, right about now in Pakistan as
I
well.
think Pakistan needs that desperately, especially with the rise of extremism over here, which comes from ill distribution of wealth, lack of education, lack of aspiration. Those are the kind of things we need to be doing. Like this country desperately needs, for instance, youngsters in this city, including Islamabad, and I don't really know Lahore and Pindi. I know Pindi and Islamabad and Karachi need some kind of entertainment. Right. There's lack of education. All these things can be addressed if people from certain segments of society like ourselves take some time out. Right. Say about an hour of your weekend or 2 hours of your weekend every fortnight.
Right.
People think like people in the East live, kushti, nice, slow lives. Believe me, I've been here for 3 weeks and I haven't had proper sleep, and it's not because I'm having fun. This place is probably as fast as London and New York, if not faster.
Right.
And it's even sleepy Islamabad.
Especially
sleepy.
The blogosphere and the Twitterers or
exactly.
What
like
are they
you never go to sleep, do you?
Well, I do
I get
for a little while.
Yeah, I get Twitter feeds from you like almost 24 hours a day. I go, does this woman actually sleep?
Hey, I'm not the only one. You should see some of the others who hardly sleep at all.
Ouch. So those are the kind of things I believe we need.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurs or people, and not necessarily even entrepreneurs, firstly, like there's this misconception that an entrepreneur is someone who starts his own business.
Right.
I have people who work with me, they're employees, they work with me rather than for me, who truly are entrepreneurs in their own sense. Okay. So you have to be enterprising.
Right.
So if you work for a bank, go out there, find a kid, sponsor his education. I'm not saying take him off the street, bring him house and treat him like your own, because you won't, it's difficult. But the point is, if we all contribute towards someone's education, if we all contribute, not just like, paying for a kid's fees and things like that, but making sure, like, if someone's stuck, needs guidance, you're there to provide them with guidance. It could be the fruit vendor on a tailor.
Right.
Like, for instance, if he wants to move into a shop, he sure as hell isn't going to get money from the bank, so maybe you could put him in touch to an angel investor who might be able to be willing to invest in
right.
a shop.
So link them up with the right.
Link them up. Because over here we've got very clear segregation of society. It's us and then them, and then them category 2, them category 3, which is unfortunate.
No.
Yeah, I do remember, I'm not that old, I do remember a Karachi where it wasn't like that. Individuals were more conscious, we were more socially aware.
I think it's happening again. People are beginning to understand that that's needed. We went off into our own spaces and didn't
now
really
we're coming back to Earth.
We're coming back, and that's good. It's great to see. Tell me, technology, the use of technology to solve some of the problems within Pakistan, making sure that perhaps technology is used a lot more for development. Is that an area that you have an opinion on?
I certainly do. I have an opinion on almost everything. I think there are already programs out there that we can benefit from. Like, for instance, there's the $100 computer, the laptop. I tried to get hold of 100 of them once, and I got told I couldn't, only the government or an NGO could.
Okay.
So I think the government needs to learn from that. and they need to invest in things like that.
I think they have. I don't know how many, but they have bought some $100 computers.
Okay.
I don't know where they are and where they're being used. Maybe we should find out.
I think
Lack
it'll
of
be,
knowledge on our
I think
part.
it'd be interesting to find out where they're being used.
Yes.
So things like modern economy, what do we need? We need a new infrastructure. We need broadband everywhere. But having said that, Pakistan has broken ground. For instance,
Yes.
the first WiMAX network,
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, in the world was in Karachi by Wateed. And I've got it set up at home, and it works like a charm.
Right.
I wish I had it in England. I think we will get it in England sooner or later. But hey, these guys are ahead of other people in some respects.
Right.
So I think that could be replicated. Like for instance, it's going to be difficult and expensive rolling out new infrastructure to our rural areas.
Right.
That's where I think there needs to be concerted effort on education, because what we have is, as in everywhere, rural people come into the cities looking for better opportunities, and unfortunately in Pakistan they're completely uneducated. So there needs to be huge cultural change as well. Like for instance, I don't know how conducive to education the rural environment is. The whole feudal master-serf thing. Maybe that needs to be dealt with. So there are things like land reforms that need to go hand in hand with education. Like with the the rise of extremism. What has led to the rise of extremism? It's hopelessness. So
if there were opportunities to start businesses, to actually do things that are innovative and fun, then people would be
absolutely.
sort of
I mean,
diverted.
for a lot of people, the majority of the people, I think the innovation and fun thing comes later.
There is a lot of expertise available in the rural sector, whether it be handicrafts, whether it be pottery making, whether it be any kind of thing. I mean, farming in itself, there is expertise out there. And so if technology can be used to help them develop
absolutely.
the sectors that they're good at.
In fact, you touched upon a really, really important point. Like the Pakistani government needs to get in touch with PayPal and say to them that, listen, we need you to put our country on the list of countries where PayPal payments can be accepted.
Yes, definitely.
That's the only way rural people would be able to put their products online, sell them on eBay, and get money for it.
Right.
Without that, there's no payment mechanism.
It's not just rural people. A lot of our young people who are developing right now have been crying out for PayPal for some time.
I know a freelancer who's been cheated out of a lot of money by some guys in America because they've said, look, there's no way to pay you. There's only Western Union to pay you. So when we send money through Western Union, there's a huge percentage that's cut off, etc., etc. So it's kind of like, if you want to support rural areas or urban areas, you need the infrastructure.
Right.
Now, just a few things in the infrastructure are things like, a good backbone, good broadband connection.
Which we are headed towards.
Mechanism.
We've now got redundancy, and we've got, as you said, we've got WiMAX. I think we're headed towards better infrastructure, and of course it could always be better than it is. But we certainly need PayPal, because for any online selling or buying,
so it's almost like, Pakistan's people and its economy are shut out of this walled garden. That's called PayPal. And the whole world operates on PayPal, whereas we can't. So I can't understand that. So maybe I'm just stupid. Maybe the government does need to have a conversation with someone. Like, for instance, I don't know how true it is, but someone told me the government of Pakistan got in touch with YouTube, or rather Google, to take some videos offline. Yeah. Like, hell, if you can make that phone call, I'm pretty sure you can find a guy in PayPal to talk to. So these are the kind of things like, obviously the list goes on and on and on, but just big headliners.
They can make a major difference.
It can make a major difference. It'll make a major difference to a lot of people like who, work for, what's that called? Click and pay or something. They sit there for these search engines, clicking on links, accruing money. It's funny.
Hey, we know a lot of young people who do that.
It's funny, but a lot of young people do that. But they get stuck when it comes to getting paid. So for instance...
Well, they figured it out. They are getting paid, but money does get deducted.
Yeah.
Because Google checkout doesn't work here. PayPal doesn't work here. There are a couple of things that do, but there is a large percentage that's
taken off. So I suppose those are the kind of like main headlines. Just to recap, my most important one that I've been pushing in Pakistan for a long time is data protection.
Yes.
Without data protection, you're not going to be able to
It's holding
attract,
us back. Yeah.
good investment in. The other main headline is government support for entrepreneurs. Then there's like removal or amends to archaic legislations. And when I say archaic, I don't mean one that was set 60 years ago, one that was set, a year and a half ago? Like the e-crimes bill. Yeah. That needs to be amended. We need to get some people who are educated as opposed to qualified to sit and read that and work with industry in coming up with something that works for everyone.
Yeah, correct. Well, that's great. I think we shall send this tape to the government and hope that they listen to you.
And don't refuse me a visa the next time I try and come into Pakistan.
No, I'm sure they won't. And good luck with
Thank you very much,
your business, and I hope that you'll continue to bring back work to Pakistan. We need more people like you who trust in the talent that exists here.
Thank you very much. And a lot of talent exists in this country.
It does. I have great faith in that.
So do I. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
That was KubairShirazee, and it was great talking to him, learning from him what entrepreneurs like him need to happen in terms of changes in legislation so that this country can move much further ahead. We're already sort of moving ahead at about 50% growth a year, maybe not this year, but the last 4 or 5 years. And much more can happen if we take those right steps. This is Jahara signing off from another episode of In the Line of Wire.